Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to be here again. My name is Catherine Ross and I manage the sales, marketing and support teams here at Dynamics Consultants. I've probably spoken to most of you over the years. So a very warm welcome to the 4th Dynamics Changes event. The last one was in June, was very well received and we had some great feedback. So thank you all for that. Today, as usual, we will be mixing between live and pre-recorded videos to make sure we have no issues with connectivity. All the way through the sessions, please feel free to put comments into the questions into the chat box, and we will monitor these and take time to answer the questions at the end of each session. Please also remember that everybody who's registered who leaves feedback within the next 24 hours of the event will be entered into the draw for a bottle of champagne. We have a full agenda again today, so showing you some of what's new in Business Central 19, which was released earlier this month, and some hints and tips, as well as an overview to some additional third-party products. We've also added some short videos to the end of these sessions so you can meet the team. Our first session today is from our new IT infrastructure partner, Vermont, and they're covering the subject around cybersecurity, something that we all need to take seriously these days. So let me introduce Chris Ward, who is the MD from Vermont. Over to you, Chris.
Catherine, thank you. Really kind welcome. Brilliant to be here today talking to you about a subject that's really close to our hearts for sure. As we see the results every day of good and bad cybercrime prevention, and hopefully something that you as someone who's responsible for IT or for cybersecurity in your business is equally interested in. So we've got a few slides to work through. So let me share my screen out here and let's see if that works. Catherine, is that coming through for you?
All good.
Yeah, brilliant. Perfect. Okay, great. So what we're going to be looking at today is why businesses fail to manage the risks from cybercrime. Cybercrime is a symptom of a problem rather than being a problem in its own right. And what I'm going to do this lunchtime is just talk you through what is the underlying problem that means that cybercrime then becomes a problem in your organisation. How do you know if you have that problem? And of course, what you need to do to get started to fix that. So just right off the bat, what I wanted to do is ask you a question. Do you have a board member or a trustee, if you're a not-for-profit, responsible for cybersecurity? Do you have a board member or trustee responsible for cybersecurity within your organisation? Now, let's have a look. The government did some research recently, and this is the results that they found. And I think that's, quite stark. That only around about a third or a little bit over a third of small businesses, getting up towards a half of sort of small to medium-sized firms, but less than 50% of businesses have someone at board level who's got a responsibility for cybersecurity, and this is problem number one. If something's important within an organisation, yet someone at the top of the organisation doesn't have responsibility for making that happen, then guess what? Nothing happens. And we see the same thing in other areas of our businesses, right? Sales. I'm guessing there's someone in a senior management board position that's responsible for sales within your organisation. Finance, I'm going to guess that's the same. And delivering your services, the same thing, right? You've got people who are accountable for making those things happen. But in cybersecurity, less than half of organisations don't have that person. So there you go. There's problem number one within your organisation. And the question I'd ask the people who have got someone who you would say is responsible for that, if that's, if you answered yes in your organisation, that you do have someone responsible, the next question I'd really want to ask them is, do they feel qualified to be responsible for that? Do they feel like they know what to do about it, how to reduce the risk presented by cybercrime, or were they just the last person in the room when the question was asked, who's going to be responsible, and it was handed to them, but they're not really sure how to do anything about that? Let's have a look at another question. How often are directors or senior managers updated on cybersecurity progress? Think about that in your own organization. If maybe you are the person in your organization who is responsible for cybercrime, how often are you updated? Let's have a look at the UK results from this government research earlier this year. So, well, 17% of people of organizations said that they were never updated. At one end of the spectrum, and yet at the other end of the spectrum, some people, 10%, said that they were updated daily on cybercrime. You know, what's going on there, and I thought that's a real diversity of responses. And where is it on your in your organization? How often do you get updated? Now, I'm going to say that I would be as worried about the people who say they're updated daily about cybersecurity actions as the ones that are never updated, simply because I don't think that they're being updated on anything strategic. I think they're being updated on actual issues that are occurring. So yeah, food for thought from that one. Now, in any organisation, you need to have someone. In any functional area in your business, you need to have someone responsible for it and someone who feels like they know how to deliver results right in that area. So what I wanted to do was sort of step back a little bit from cybercrime and put this back into some context that I think we all feel a little bit more comfortable with. So let's take the example of sales. So in our business, Vermont Systems, when we first started out, we were a couple of IT guys, happy-go-lucky, knew what we were doing from an IT perspective, and started a business and thought, at a certain point on that trajectory, we need a salesperson. We need to get someone in to help us to really help this organization take off and make it to the big time. So of course we hired a sales guy. So let's have a look at the first time we did that. Let's have a look at how we defined success, what processes we put in place, how we held that person accountable, and what the outcomes were. So let's have a look at that. So yeah, the first time round, the definition of success for that person coming in was to sell something. Pretty simple. We had a process. We put a phone on their desk and we said, hey, how about you pick up that phone and start calling some people and sell some stuff? That was the process. Accountability was that periodically we'd walk past his desk and we would ask the question, have you sold anything today? Or in fact this week? Or in fact this month? That was how we held that person accountable. And guess what the outcomes were? Yeah, absolutely. We didn't sell much. And the things we did sell was not necessarily a good fit for us as an organization. So I don't know if you went through a similar stage in your process in your life within your organization early on when you were starting out, although maybe you were from a sales background rather than a sort of an IT technical background like me, so you knew a little bit more about what you were doing. So having failed at that, I realized I needed to go back and learn, how does sales work? How do I put these things in place to do a proper job? So we read a bunch of books, did some coaching with some people, asked other people, customers of ours or people that we work with to get some best practice. And so now, second time around, we've got a real tight definition of success in terms of, how that salesperson is going to work, number of dials they're going to make, how many decision maker conversations, number of first time appointments with good fit prospects. We measure those outcomes on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, so we know exactly where we are in that phase of the process. And then, yeah, absolutely, we've got a strong process. So we've got a prospect database, we've got a premise for the call that he's going to make, and we've got a CRM to manage the frequency of calls and callbacks and that sort of thing, so that we're working through that really effectively. And then we link that up with webinars and other content that we're putting out to give a good premise for that call. Accountability, yeah, we've got daily huddles, we've got weekly sales meeting, and we've got monthly company meetings to make sure that we're all holding each other accountable for the things that we're doing. And yeah, outcomes, and now we have a regular stream of good fit customers that we can really add value to and achieve the success criteria that we've defined in that area. So that's just one example. That's not to show off about how good we are at sales now. That's really to give you a contrast between a functional area in your business where things work well and the same area where things aren't working well. And hopefully that gives you some context in what I'm talking about around success, process, and accountability, and how that ties into outcomes. Let me just delve a little bit further back into Vermont. So now I'm going to start to tie this into how does this affect cybercrime. So going from what was all this about sales? What's that got to do with cybercrime? So bear with me a second, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to step back and talk a little bit more about our history as a company, and I think this again will give you some useful some useful context to hang these principles off. So Vermont Systems is called Vermont Systems because Vermont is a peaceful place. There's a picture of Vermont, and the founder of Vermont, it wasn't me or Oliver. Currently we run the business, but another chap founded the business, and he wanted to call it Vermont Systems because Vermont is a peaceful place, and he had an idea that he could make IT systems tranquil, peaceful, work well, not have lots of issues and noise. But the reality is when Oliver and I came in to take the business on and to work it, we realized that it wasn't very peaceful at all. In fact, we nicknamed this phase of life the reactive spiral of death. And let me show you how we measured that. So this is a snapshot from our support desk system back then, and you can see that the number of tickets over time is just going up and up and up, and that means that we were spending more and more time being reactive and less time being proactive. We couldn't manage our clients' IT systems effectively because we were just spending all of our time firefighting. And so we had this picture of the less proactive time we had, the less good stuff we could do to dampen down the noise. So guess what? The noise kept going up, and we couldn't get out of it. It was really, really hard, and we felt we were being sucked into this sort of whirlpool, this vortex of death, as we called it, as that was where the business was headed. So, of course, what did we do? We went back and put the right things in place to manage a business successfully. So we put in place, goals, we put in place initiatives, accountability we've just talked about, and really strong process. And through putting in place those principles, and I'm sure all of those things are really familiar to you, that you run those sort of things in your sales functions, in your finance functions, in your operations functions within your business, to get really good results. So we did exactly the same and started to put those same sort of things in place. And then you can see now that we had a different sorry, hang on, these slides I've sure I got slightly out of sync here, so I'm slightly off thread, but yeah, just taking a step back before we put all of those good processes in place, going back to that chart, just really again to highlight the difference between those urgent and important things in our organizations, that urgent always seems to trump important. You've got to work so hard to make the important things the most important things, and not let urgent get in the way. And again, that's where accountability and process really make all of the difference in doing that. And so we put all those things in place, and this was the results then over time that we started on this trend of reducing the number of reactive tickets that we were experiencing, and that's just a really good measure of background noise and firefighting over time. And you can see that came down really well. And so now we've got, instead of having only 20% of our time available to do the important stuff and 80% of our time doing the urgent stuff, we flipped that right round so that we spend 80% of our time doing the important proactive things, adding value to our customers, rather than just simply firefighting those problems. And now I can say with assurance that Vermont is now a peaceful place and worthy of that original name that we were given. So what has this all got to do with cybercrime? I hear you ask across the airwaves. So the bottom line point is that you can't deal with cybercrime when you are in that reactive spiral of death. If your IT function overall, so cybercrime prevention is, for most of our businesses, it's a subset of what we do within our IT functions. And if our IT function is reactive, if most of the time and resources that we have within our IT budget are spent reactively, then we haven't got a hope of being able to do anything about cybercrime, because cybercrime is almost entirely a proactive activity. At least preventing cybercrime is entirely a proactive activity. If you're dealing with cybercrime reactively, that simply means that the data breach has happened, the ransomware has taken hold, whatever disaster is unfolding, and now you're into panic mode, trying to figure out how to buy enough Bitcoin to pay the ransom and get your systems unlocked in good time. So what I'm going to say to you is that, is your underlying IT management methodology or process, is that in good shape? Do you have a high percentage of time doing the important things, doing the proactive things, or is it very reactive? And how do you know? And so let's have a quick look at that, because if you haven't got the right things in place generally within IT management, then getting any traction on preventing cybercrime is really, really difficult. Yeah, you can install some tools, you can have a look at what the best antivirus is, you can sort of mess around with some monitoring and all those sort of things, but that's just fiddling around. It's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic whilst it's sinking. Getting those foundations in place are crucial. Once you've done that, then it's actually relatively easy to then layer over the top of that some cybercrime prevention activity. So again, let me just jump back in and let's have a quick look and see what I mean by that. So let's go back to that table we had, but we looked at this with sales. So let's have a look at it with IT management. So what's your definition of success in your IT in your organization as regards IT management? So for a lot of people, their measure of success is, did my problem get fixed fast enough? Now, is that true for your organization? We see this a lot, that if the problems aren't getting fixed fast enough, then that's a problem. And generally, when we get called in to go and speak to a prospective customer, this is when we say, hey, why are we here today? This is what they tell us, is that problems don't get fixed fast enough. But the reality is that almost always the real problem is they get too many problems, and their support desk is swamped, and that's why things aren't getting fixed fast enough. And so really you want to flip that around and say, instead of measuring how fast problems get fixed, actually we need to start to reduce the number of reactive tickets. So for example, the national average, well, before the pandemic, the national average in the UK was around about 1 support desk ticket per person per month. It's about 1.1. It's actually currently at around about 1.3 or 1.4 due to sort of lots of churn due to pandemic related factors. But 0.5 is a manageable figure. That's sort of where we tend to like our customers to sit, to again make sure we're getting enough of that budget to be doing proactive stuff. So it's dead easy to start to track that within your IT function, whether that's you run that in-house or whether that's something that is outsourced. You can start to track number of tickets per person and just set a goal. We're currently at 1. Let's see if we can get that down to 0.5. For example, and then that's a metric that you can start to track. You could have alignment scores against an industry benchmark or some sort of standard that you might want to set a goal saying, hey, we're going to get from 65 to 85% against that alignment score. Or you might pick another particular benchmark that you want to use. Or you might say, hey, look, we're going to create 5 proactive initiatives each month. Or tickets, or however you're going to track those, and we're going to get 5 done every month. Just some sort of metrics that you can start to gain traction. Just again, thinking back to how you might manage your sales function or your finance function, just think, coming up with good metrics to measure that by. Again, have you got a process? So most people's process as regards to IT management is that you simply report problems. There's not a lot often goes on around managing this proactively, but for you, again, gauge where you are on this continuum. Maybe you're over on the right hand side where you're doing monthly alignment reviews, as in proactively checking what's working well, what's not working well, what's in alignment, what's out of alignment. You might have then quarterly roadmap to prioritize and implement the recommendations that between business and IT, so that the business is well informed of the issues and the risks that they've got, and you can keep tracking down. Accountability, the same thing. Why did my problem not get fixed. So again, very, very reactive versus having, scheduled, quarterly reviews and involving senior leadership so that IT is regarded as an important function, just the same as sales, finance and operations. And then what's the outcomes? So the outcomes on the left-hand side is lots of issues, lots of outages, projects run late, no strategic advice. Outcomes on the right, low number of issues, few major outages, improvements get made over time against that strategic roadmap that you're creating. Now, if you're over on the left-hand side of that right now, you're going to find it really, really hard to gain traction, not just with IT generally, but with resolving this issue, these challenges around cybercrime that are coming at our organizations, and they're only getting worse, right? The headlines that we see in the press, all of the surveys that we get to read, they all show that the problems are getting worse, and the reason for that is because the cyber criminals are being successful, so their budgets are increasing as they get more and more money coming in as they are successful in their cyber criminal activities. So their budgets are increasing, they're maturing their businesses, they're putting in place goals and process and accountability, and they're having fantastic outcomes. So if we're not maturing what we're doing, we're simply going to be falling further and further behind. Whereas on the other side, if you've got a good proactive system in place for managing your IT now, you are in great shape to be then layering over some stuff you can do with cybercrime. So what would you do about that? So if you've got good IT management in place, you can add cybersecurity onto that. Now, this is a particular framework. There's lots of different frameworks you can use for managing cybercrime or cybersecurity, but I wanted to just touch on this one just to give you a flavour of the sort of things that you should be doing. Now, most people spend most of their time in preventing cybercrime in this protect sector, that purple sector there. That's things like antivirus, it's tools, it's trying to stop the stuff happening. And so a lot of time and investment goes into that particular purple segment, ignoring these other ones, but they're all equally important. And what I would want you to do, now again, bearing in mind, I'm assuming you're over on that right hand side, that mature side of having a good IT management process. If you're on that left side still, you've got to work on that first, and cybersecurity you'll just have to wait. That's the honest reality of where you are. You've got to get yourself over from the left hand side to the right hand side. If you're on the right hand side, then start layering some of this stuff in. What are you doing to identify the equipment that you've got? Have you got good asset management in place? Do you know what equipment you're trying to secure? Do you know where the data is in your organization? So spending some time identifying that. Absolutely protect it. Once you've figured out where it is, what are you going to do to protect it? But also, you've got to assume that a breach will happen. The resources set against us at this point from the cybercrime organizations are such that we have to assume that our small, medium-sized businesses at some point will be breached. So how do we know? Have we got anything to detect? Have we got anything in place on that? What are we going to do to respond when a breach happens? Have we got a plan in place? Have we done that with a tabletop exercise to say, hey, look, let's plan out a scenario, let's work it out. When does insurance get involved? When do we need to get our legal people involved? How are we going to respond to the press? As well as the final sector there, how are we actually going to start to recover the systems? Have we got things in place, backups, not just that they're backing up the data every day, but actually we can recover in a reasonable amount of time, which makes sense for the business operations. So starting to think all of those things through, and I would encourage you to spend an equal amount of time on each of those, so that you're maturing things steadily and not just focusing on one area, because that's sort of what gets all of the publicity in the headlines, things like antivirus and those sort of tools. Just to touch on Cyber Essentials, which if you're in that more mature sector of things, I would absolutely encourage you to be looking at Cyber Essentials as a really good benchmark. If you don't know where to start, this is a great place to start, and is easy to layer over the top of a good IT management process and you'll find that relatively straightforward to work through. And you simply follow, this simple flow chart here. Use Cyber Essentials as a standard. So review where you are today against that Cyber Essentials standard. It's about 90 questions that you can answer. See where you are, work out where your gaps are, put some priority and budget against those things. Create an action plan and just keep looping around. It might take you 1 quarter to get Cyber Essentials done. It might take you 3 or 4 quarters to get it done. It just depends where you start from. But this gives you a nice simple loop to go around, and results come from disciplined action over a period of time. That's how we get results in all areas of our business. And hey, guess what? IT, technology management and cyber security, cyber crime prevention, they follow exactly the same things. So just going back to where we started from, cybercrime is a symptom of a problem. It's not the underlying problem itself. The underlying problem is a lack of process in IT management. That if you don't have that in place, you simply can't get going with cybercrime prevention. If you have got those good things in place, it's relatively straightforward to start layering over the top what you're going to do about cybercrime. How do I know if I've got the problem? Well, if you know what's important, and in terms of IT management and cybercrime, if you know the things that are important because you had that assessment and you find you've got good traction in getting things done, then yeah, you've probably got a really good IT management process. If actually you don't really, as a leader in your organization, you don't really know what the priorities should be, and you find it hard to get traction and get things done, then you probably don't have good process. And therefore, yeah, you've got some work to do to get that sorted out. And what do you do to fix it? Well, look, outcomes comes from a definition of success. It comes from process. It comes from accountability. It's we see in so many organizations that people mature their businesses and their organizations with sales, with finance and with operations. And most often HR and IT are the two functions, the two sort of strategic functions that get missed out from having that level of maturity. So look at that and say, can I bring IT management and hence cybercrime prevention in line with that maturity in other parts of your business? And that's how to get moving on it. If you're already there, then just go back, take a look at that circle I put in place and just start to work on, hey, where are we? What can we be doing next? Take some benchmarks like Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, or other standards that you can start to layer over the top and create initiatives around that. And that's all we got. So that's my contact details. If you want to drop me a line, really happy to hear from you. If there's any follow-up you want to make, drop me an email is probably best. And then we can schedule some time to talk if we need to, but feel free to give me a call on that number as well. Catherine, did we have any questions coming in as we went through?
Yes, we had one, which was about the first steps of starting to put a cyber strategy in place. But I think you've probably covered that in the rest of the presentation. Brilliant,
great. And if I didn't answer that question, and if there was some specific details around that question for the person that asked it, definitely, more than happy if they want to reach out, and we can try and cover that off for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris has put his contact details there, but obviously they're working with us now as well. So anybody who wants to get Chris's details or the steps, then obviously the presentation is going to be sent out after the end of today, so everybody will have it anyway. So thank you, Chris. I'm sure that is going to promote a number of urgent discussions in a few businesses around this area as a result of that presentation. So a few bits of news from us here at Dynamics Consultants. On the employee side of things, we have a new project manager, Megan, who I'm sure many of you will be meeting in the near future. We've taken on 4 new apprentices, 2 going into consultancy, that's Owen and Robert. Amy has joined in the sales and marketing team with Jessie and myself. And Brandon has joined the support team and he's going to have a focus on infrastructure and installations for Business Central. Another thing I wanted to remind you about was the support portal. It's all now up and live and working, and it's being used by a number of other companies, but I'm sure that there are many more who could benefit from it. There's a lot of FAQs on the site and over 150 training videos. You could have access to all of those based on having a valid current support contract with us. The way the portal works is that you can see the outstanding calls and also the history of any calls that you've logged. So if the issue had reoccurred a couple of months ago, you'll be able to see the resolution and hopefully resolve that much quicker by doing it yourselves. I'm sure you've all seen on the call closure email the red and green thumbs. They've been on the support emails for a while. We've now added these to the closure email for the work requests. Work requests are small pieces of work that we do for you that when you're out of a project. We're always after good quotes and comments. No doubt you've seen some of those flashing up on the screens already today. So please let us know if we do things well or if we've excelled ourselves at any time. And if there is an issue, please call me and let me know so that we can resolve anything amicably. On this basis, we would like to ask for some additional reviews to be added to Google, please, for the Dynamics Consultants site. It's amazing what these reviews actually do for your SEO, so it's a good tip to have for your own website. Many thanks in advance for all the great comments, and anyone who fancies being the subject of a case study, please contact myself or Jessie. We will do the majority of the legwork. I'm happy to share on various media platforms for the benefit of both companies. We are slowly returning to the office. It's been great getting back together, albeit in limited numbers. We did go to the dizzy heights of double figures. We had 12 in the office last week, but we're very hot on not letting people in the office with any sniffles as well, though. Project-wise, we've had a few really busy, great months, lots of new projects underway and several go lives. So it looks like a lot of businesses are returning and realising that they needed that investment in IT and have pushed forward. We had to do a large number of upgrades earlier in the year, in part thanks to HMRC and Making Tax Digital. And talking about upgrades, you all know that the development language has changed and everything is now in extensions rather than the old CAL code. This will make future upgrades significantly easier. So we've put in place an option to have an upgrade subscription. So once you're on Business Central and all the development is then in extensions, you can then pay monthly or quarterly and get an upgrade every 12 or 18 months. This will then keep you in line with the new support lifecycle plan from Microsoft. If you've got any queries on that or you want a quote, then obviously please let me or any of the team know and I can get going on that for you. So I think that's plenty for me for now. So now we've got Stuart, who's going to show us a real life application written using the new Power Platform. He's going to take you through an app that we've developed for our risk assessment. So over to you, Stuart.
Over the last few years, Microsoft have put a lot of investment into building the functionality in the Power Platform. In previous webinars, I've given overviews of some of the capabilities that is available in this low-code toolbox. Whilst the Power Apps are excellent at expanding the functionality for Dynamics products, they can also be used to quickly create small, useful apps for businesses. On a monthly basis, a lucky nominee at Dynamics Consultants has to go around the office and carry out a risk assessment. Traditionally, this has been done by recording the results on a piece of paper. This then has to be passed to the admin team to review, remedy any potential issues, and then get signed off by a director. This comes with the usual set of challenges: drinks spilled in the paperwork, lost paperwork, illegible writing. Our Power Platform group has recently put together a simple app to assist our admin team with this, that I'm going to briefly walk you through. This is the Dynamics Consultants Risk Assessment app. As a Power App, you can view it either on your mobile phone, on a tablet, or on a desktop. I'm viewing it on the desktop, but the canvas has been designed to work on a mobile phone. So when you first enter the app, you get presented with the home screen, which allows you to either have admin access, if you have an admin right, where you can go through and manage the setup behind the scenes. So this allows us to specify locations that are within the application, areas within those locations, hazards that could potentially be met in each of those locations. So for instance, here we've got a list of different hazards: electrical, trip and water. We can edit these in the app and you can put some additional information in here. So here we can see for electrical hazards, here are some prompts that the user will see within the app. Once the setup's been carried out, the admin team can then create a new risk assessment and assign it to a user to carry out. I already have a risk assessment assigned to me, so I'm going to go through the process of carrying out this risk assessment. I click on continue and it shows me I have one incomplete risk assessment for head office that needs to be carried out on the 12th of October 2021. When I click through, I then see the different areas of head office that I need to check, and then status to say whether they've currently been checked or not. I click through into the main office and then get presented with a screen that allows me to record the different issues that I might experience. So here I have electrical issues selected, but I could select trip or water if I so wanted. We stick with electrical. And there's a drop down here if you need additional assistance to see what you could record. So for instance, electrical hazards, we can have broken plugs, bare wires, or loose light fittings. You can then describe the risk that you've seen. And then submit the issue. You also have the option to add photos. So if I'm on my phone, I can click the add photo button. It then opens up the camera app on my phone, allows me to take a picture of the issue and attach it to the app. So I'm going to submit this issue. And now I have the option to start creating another issue if I want. So here I could say there's a water issue. And I can submit that. When I'm happy that I've done all the different checks that I need to, I can see the number of checks up here. I can also view the issues if I want, so I can see electrical and water, the two issues I've recorded. I'm happy now I've checked the main office. I can then tick the checked to say that is now complete. And if I then go back to the next page back, I can see that the office has been checked and it's turned green. I can then go through and check each of the additional areas. So I've got no issues with the toilets, no issues with the kitchen. Once everything's been completed, I can click on View Summary, which then shows me a list of everything that's been carried out in this inspection. So it's been carried out by myself on the 12th of October. The status is now complete because I complete each of the offices, and this is the list of all the issues that have been submitted by me. Once I'm back at the home page, I can see that I have 0 risk assessments remaining. If I was an admin user, I can then click into the admin section and view the completed risk assessments. I can see here on the 12th of October, these are the 2 issues that were reported. This then allows me to go into each of these, review them, add any photos, and close the issues down. So I hope you've enjoyed a little tour of our risk assessment app. Hopefully it gives you some ideas of the capabilities of what you can do with these in a very quick time frame. If you have any further questions or want to know more about Power Apps, then please feel free to drop a question into the webinar or contact myself or Catherine with anything you want to know.
Hello, I'm Tony Clark and my job title is Operations and Consulting Team Manager. My main responsibilities are the running of the consulting and project management team, resource management, overseeing operations across Dynamics consultants, reporting at operational level, as well as sitting on the Dynamics consultant management team. I also act as project manager on several projects. Outside of work, I'm a Saracen rugby season ticket holder and go to all of their home games and some of their away games. I like to spend time with my granddaughters and walking our 3 dogs.
Well, thank you very much, Tony, for that intro. And wow, Stuart, that's great that we got rid of some more paper in the office as well. There's a couple of things we've put into the chat box. Jessie's put the link to leave the review for our Google review for DC. And also we've had a couple of other questions that Chris has answered very comprehensively in the chat. So what steps should a company take to ensure their employees are aware and kept up to date? So Chris has given you a very comprehensive response in the chat. So I'm not going to read it all out, but please have a look at that. So on the basis there's no more questions, I'll push on. If you've got any tasks that you think could be translated into a Power App, then obviously get in touch with Stuart, because he's the guy that knows how to do all of that stuff. Now we've got a session from Dave Walton from Netstock. Netstock is an inventory management and optimization solution, and we've integrated that into Dynamics NAV and Business Central. So over to you, Dave.
Hello everybody, my name is Dave Walton. I work for a company called Netstock, and we market an inventory optimization cloud-based solution. And the reason that we exist is that all ERP systems, Navision and Business Central included, is a little suboptimal in terms of being able to optimize your inventory. And that's why we exist. And I just want to share my screen just to have a look at a few slides just to set the scene and talk to you about Netstock as a business. So we're a global business, and with my wife I can catch up. And we've been around since 2011. We've got more than 1,750 customers globally. And we're planning on a daily basis, forecasting on a monthly basis, more than 88 million stock keeping units. Helping them optimize in excess of £9 billion worth of inventory, 15,500 users logging in on a daily basis. And of course, what that means is on any browser, on any device. And the things that people look to us to help solve is typically they've got too much of the wrong inventory, too little of the right inventory. They're trying to do forecasting and planning in Excel, which is not only difficult, time consuming, it's also very risky. Google reckons that 88% of all spreadsheets have an error in them, affecting what the spreadsheet is trying to deliver. And planning spreadsheets can get pretty complex, just increasing that risk. Now in Excel, it's pretty difficult to get, really complex around the order trigger. So often many items from the same supplier, for example, are treated similarly from a reorder point perspective. But when we consider each individual item, its inventory risk is unique to that item. And we measure that. It's a function of the supplier risk and the demand risk. And those two pieces of analysis for every item in every warehouse are an input to our safety stock calculation. But it means that all these things that this poor guy is wrestling with means that he doesn't have sufficient time to do value-added tasks. Now we solve those and therefore deliver some benefits. So typically our customers enjoy a reduction in inventory, which of course releases working capital back into the business to spend on other things, but at the same time an improvement in off-the-shelf availability. Two biggest ones from an ROI perspective. The most common reason our prospects become customers is the third one, because all of those perpetual spreadsheet machinations that you're going through, we do all those calculations whilst you're tucked up in bed asleep. And we do them by basically addressing a couple of key questions. The top one, the simpler one of the two, if you like, is what do we need to replenish today and over time to keep us at our optimal inventory levels. And there's a lot of science built into that process. The second one, what needs attention today? For example, items where you've got too much on order, you're stocked out, you're going to stock out until the next delivery. So if you think about this, this is the day in the life of a planner stroke buyer. So that's all I wanted to just show from a slide perspective. So obviously in the time allotted, we don't have time to really deep dive everything, but I just wanted to show you a few pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, one of which, and very intrinsic in Netstock, is item classification. So we're doing two lots of classification, one based on units and a fiscal input to give us ABC, and another one where we're just focusing on units to give us a velocity rating, high, medium, low. We put them together in this two-dimensional matrix, obviously plotting ABC down the left, low, medium, and high across the top. And I said it was very intrinsic, and that's because we're doing it for two reasons. One is quite obvious, it's importance. These fellas being much more important than these, right? But the second reason that we do it is more important still, because this forms the starting point, but you can override this right the way down to an individual item level for applying the policy parameters that are inputs to the min-max levels. One is the desired service level, expressed as a target fill rate. And obviously the higher you set that up to 100%, the more safety stock we calculate to buffer the item's supply risk, and demand risk. And the second one, replenishment cycle, the frequency with which you replenish it. Now, the reason this is so important is it basically is establishing the business's inventory strategy. What level of service does it want to supply to its customers? And therefore, we can tell you how much inventory you should have on the shelf on average, expressed as this model stock here. And everything that we do in net stock is driving every item to its model stock. And then the dashboard are the items that are deviant from that model that need attention, the excess items, items that may or may not already be in excess, but we've got too much on order, triggering, please, Mr. Supplier, can I cancel, delay, or reduce? These ones are already stocked out, and we kind of scale the problem about the potential loss of cost of sales. These ones are in stock, but they're going to run out before the next delivery. Same calculation to scale these. These are driving the expedite supply process. And if you're able to do that on these ones, such that the customers don't feel a thing, well, isn't that a great benefit? So there's more on here that's pretty useful, but hopefully you can see that's very visual and the kind of information that you need to be improving your lot. But let's have a look at an item quickly. So if you've got multiple warehouses in your own supply chain, we can see this item in other locations together with the demand for the item in those locations, what's in stock, what's on order, the dashboard status as well. And then we can obviously navigate to the item as well. But this is some static data that we're either receiving from Nav/Business Central or we're populating. We've got a tournament-based statistical forecasting engine, so we're predicting the future based on the history of the item, and you can amend that as well, both at an individual item location level and at a macro level, and blow them down. And then this here, this is where all the clever stuff gets pulled together. So the desired service level, the lead time that we pull in from the ERP system, and there is a textbook formula to derive the number of days of safety stock that you need to deliver this fill rate in this lead time. But as I said before, we analyze this one. The supplier performance is fine. We haven't had to add or subtract some days of safety stock, subtract it if they deliver early, typically. But there is a tendency to sell a bit more than forecast. So we've buffered that with an extra day of safety stock, which boils down to the need for 28 days of safety stock. And this one is replenished every 2 weeks. This is basically establishing some levels. We take those levels and turn them into quantities up here. So we look at the demand in the lead time, which may be some ongoing forecast for the product, could be some firm sales orders that have not been allocated yet. And we apply forecast consumption to that element, but we can see what the demand is in our lead time. We then cycle through and look at the demand in the safety stock periods, days 41 through 68 in this case. There's a further 15, blah, blah, blah in that period. Your lead time and safety stock added together is your classic reorder point. Then we look at the replenishment cycle, what's 2 weeks worth of demand from day 69 through 82 in this case, and there's a further 7503 demand in that period. We add that the replenishment cycle demand to the reorder point, excuse me, to give us our order up to quantity. So that is the min, reorder point, and max on this item right now. We calculate it every time we refresh the engine. We know the stock on hand, we subtract any past due sales orders because this is all forward looking. That gives us an available stock. We add in any open purchase orders, manufacturing orders, transfer orders depending on the supply method for this item in this location. That gives us a net stock, and if the net stock is less than the reorder point, there's a recommended order factoring in any item MOQ, any item multiple to take us up to the max. So we can see on this item, we need 23,000 today. Not only can I see what I need today, but that grey band through the graph there, that's the variable min-max quantity over time. Variable because the demand is seasonal. Or to think about it more powerfully, we automatically ramp up the inventory ahead of high periods of demand and back down again in low periods of demand. And those red bars, that is what I need to either purchase, manufacture, or transfer every 2 weeks for the next year. So in terms of our slide deck originally, that is how we calculate what needs to be replenished today and over time. And obviously the dashboard is what needs attention today. How we transact that is in the order schedule. So if we go into the order schedule, I get to see a list of all of the suppliers where at least one item needs to be ordered today. Now I can see what needs to be transferred today as well, but we'll stay with the suppliers. And we show the number of items, the quantity, the value, the volume, if we've got that data, the weight of the product, if we've got that data. And this look forward days is used to pull forward those red bars in a scenario where your supplier is shut down, Chinese New Year, for example. Okay, but and this one here, look, you can see the supplier is production line 1. This is what we need to manufacture today. But in order to process it, we click on the supplier, create the order. Okay, where we now get to see a lot of information for the 12 items I need to order today. And we can go through and we can make amendments if we need to. But remember, we should be correcting the input, just not the calculation. And we can also see all additional items that need to be ordered that are above the reorder point but below the max. So we can click on here. These items are items from the same supplier where today we're above the reorder point but below the max. And we add any MOQs multiples. I can simply add them on mass, or I can use this little engine down here to right size the total order. And I can set targets. I can do that based on units, purchase order value or order value, volume of the product, the weight of the product. Let's just do something here. So let's say 780 fills a container. And this is a supplier comment. It could be added in there as an aid memoir, but we set the target, we click on solve, and then the engine selects a combination of top-up items that takes us as close to, but not exceed that target. So now I'm happy, I'm shipping less air. I'm going to add that item to my order. And then I'm going to download it. Can either produce a user's internet download, or we can make it be populated back into the requisition workbench, for example, where it can be turned into a purchase order in the normal division way. That's what I just wanted to very quickly walk through with you. I'd love to give you a much deeper dive around this functionality and tailored to your world. Should you be interested, just reach out to Dynamics consultants, and I'm sure they'll be able to arrange that. Thanks very much.
Hello, I'm Jesse Lawrence and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Dynamics Consultants. I work in communications, helping keep customers up to date with the latest news and information from Dynamics Consultants, Microsoft, other software vendors, and also with industry news. I also help people who are new to business software to understand all the details and complexities of implementing a new system, including things like licensing and the process to implement new software. In my spare time, I'm often found with camera in hand, photographing live music, or indeed walking my very, very large dog.
Thanks, Dave. There's a couple of updates for the Q&A session. So somebody asked about the app working on Android and Apple. So Stuart's confirmed that you can download it from the Power App from both Google Play and the Apple Store. That was an intro to Jesse, who is behind the controls today. I'd like to say thank you to Jesse, but could he leave the gremlins at home next time? And the next session we've got is from Stuart. So Stuart has pulled out a few bits that may be of interest that's in the new version of Business Central 19 that was launched in October, so earlier this month. The people on the SaaS platform will have access to these as soon as your system have been updated. So take it away, Stuart.
October marks the release of version 19, which is 2021 release wave 2 of Business Central. I've picked out a few pieces of new functionality that are in this release to walk through with you today. Microsoft are constantly working to improve the integration between the products in their portfolio. In this release of Business Central, there's now extended functionality to integrate into external solutions, such as Teams. So from within any card or list page within Business Central, there is now a share to other apps option at the top. If we click on that, I get the opportunity to share it to Teams. Once the pop-up box appears, you can then select which channel that you have access to in Teams you want to post it into, and you can also put additional comments against it for when it posts into Teams. I then click share, and we can go and see what's being produced in Teams. Once in Teams, if I go to my remote living Teams, click in general, you can see the new post that I've made there, my little comment against it. That then gives you a link to go back in and view the information within Business Central. So nice, quick, easy way to pass information around the business. Another piece of extended functionality involving integration with Office is the ability to send emails from within records in Business Central. So previously you could send an email out, but it'd be a basic text-based email. We now have the ability, I'm on a contact card here, to click send email, which opens up a box that allows us to send an email direct from within Business Central. We now have the ability to use Word templates. So these Word templates can be set up and use mail merge functionality within Word to build data structures that absorb data from Business Central. So if I click the use Word template, it asks me which template I want to use. So these two have both got integration to the contact already built into them. So I'll click the thanks note and say finish. That then brings this text into the message here and automatically merges in data from the contact. If you want to, you can change some of the wording within the email, obviously. And when you're happy with it, you can click send email. In Business Central and previously Nav, every time you go and create a new document, such as a sales quote, a sales order, or a purchase order, you always get the same type of default line up here, which is typically item. If you're a finance-only company and don't transact in items, this can be incredibly frustrating to have to change that type every single time you create a new line on a document. So from version 19, there is now new functionality on the sales and receivables and purchase and payables setup that allows you to go in and change the default setting. So here we've got the document default line type. I can change that to be GL account. If I close that and then go to create a new sales quote or sales order, you can now see the type defaults to GL account. Very small point, but very useful to speed up the process of entering documents. One of the concerns with customers moving from on-premise versions of Business Central or Nav up into the cloud has been the restrictions on the database sizes that Microsoft have imposed. There have recently been some changes made. So it used to be previously an 80 gigabyte limit per tenant. So you were allowed 80 gigabytes of storage, and that had to encompass both your production environment and your sandboxes. The recent changes have meant that as well as the 80 gigabyte limit, you also have an allowance per license purchased in your environment. So for each premium license that you have in your environment, you're given an extra 3 gigabytes capacity. For each Essentials license, you're given 2 gigabyte capacity increase, and for each device license, you're given an additional 1 gigabyte storage. So what does this mean for you? In a very simple example, if you're a manufacturing company with 20 premium licenses and 5 device licenses for scanners, for instance, to be used in the manufacturing or warehousing process, you'll get the following allowances. You get your initial 80 gigabyte tenant, 20 lots of 3 gigabytes for your premium licenses, and 5 lots of 1 gigabyte for your device license, giving you a total capacity of 145 gigabytes, which is obviously a vast increase over the standard 80. And that's probably a more realistic total for a business that's looking to use the system for a number of years as they grow. If you're already in SaaS and want to have visibility of what your capacity allowance is and how much you've used up. I'll give you a quick example of how to go through and find that. Within Business Central, if you click on the My Settings cog and then click on Admin Center, this takes you out to the Microsoft Environments Admin Center. Under this, there is a capacity tab that you can click on. This then shows you your capacity here, so your original 80 gigabytes, any additional user capacity or device capacity you have in there, the number of environments you've got, so you allow 1 production and up to 3 sandbox environments, and then the total capacity used within each of these particular environments. There's also the ability to look at individual tables to see which tables it is that are storing the large amount of data in the system. This is obviously a demo database, so there's a minimal amount of data in it, and we're using a very, very small amount of capacity. So this is how you see the information about what capacity you're using in your environment. Well, that's just a few of the new pieces of functionality available in version 19 of Business Central. When we send out a link to this webinar for you to view it later on, we'll also include a link to the What's New page from Microsoft. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Wow, that line type has been a constant question from customers over the last 20 years, so it's great to see it incorporated into the system. Microsoft do honestly listen to feedback. So we've got a question come in. Can you set up merge fields in the Word template? And Stuart's come back with, you can associate the Word templates with records that you generate the email from, i.e. customer card or contact card. Within Word, you can set up merging from those records. So hopefully that answers the question. So as Stuart has just said, the link to the Microsoft site where the details of the rest of what's new will be sent out when we send out the video. So, and finally from me, a few more tips and hints that we thought might be useful, and some that are in both Dynamics NAV and Business Central. I'm going to show you a few hints and tips that we came up with. One is around recurring general journals. So historically, when we did a reversing balance, it would go through on the date that we'd quoted on the transaction. However, it would reverse out on the first day of the following period. So in my example here, it would reverse out on the 1st of February. There is a new field called reverse date calculation, and as you can see, we can put in there the usual filters. So whether we say 1W for 1 week or 1M for 1 month or 23D, whatever we require, so that that reversal happens on a specific date rather than just the first date of the following month. So a nice new feature that they've added into the system. The other one that I want to take you through is filters, and this works in both the current version and in the previous versions, although it will look somewhat different. So let's say, for example, that I'm doing a filter on a daily basis or once a week to let JR know who his customers are. So I would go into the filter panel and I would put a filter on for salesperson code being JR. And maybe I've got other things where I want to say a filter where their balance is greater than 0. Yeah, so basically, you know, I've put that filter on, and obviously I can then push this into Excel, or I can I can push this into Excel and then send it out to him as a report. But obviously that's very tedious for me having to do this on a daily, weekly basis, because it means I need to remember it. But what we can do is save this filter. Yes, so here's one that I did earlier where I've saved the filter, but basically I save this filter, I give it a name, and it's going to store that filter for me. So there's the one that I did earlier. So there's my JR with balances greater than 0, and I've saved it as my JR filter. This is a different one. So this is looking at the yellow location and currency being euros. So there's all the euro currencies. And then this one is the JR filter. So this is all of the JR accounts with a euro currency. Yeah, so I can still add to this filter. So if I want to say where their balances are greater than 0 again, yeah, I can still do that, and then I can just use that. But that's not my filter, so I can still add filters on top of it. So really nice feature to be able to add those filters. Available obviously all the way through the system. So here's another one that I've got on items, where this one is filtered for anything where I've got an inventory equal to 0. Yeah, so I've just looked at inventory equal to 0. So it's giving me all inventory where I need to perhaps reorder. And then obviously on something like the chart of accounts, where we want to look at the net change, rather than, as you know, that the net change is there for all the periods, there are specific filters. So here I've got net change CM for current month, and it's looking at obviously my date filter being October because that's the month that we're in. So it's looking here at current month, which is filtering purely for October. So therefore the transactions will only be between the 1st and the 31st. But that means I don't have to change the date filter every time. So yes, I particularly want to look at a period of time, but I don't have to put the filter on. So all I've done is just filtered by CM. So we'll look at current month. So really nice feature, means that you don't have to do all of those extra pieces of work every time. So one of the other things that that we've got in the old days, we used to have tool zoom. So if I want to look at, let me clear those filters. So I've got all my customers back, and we know that there are various fields that we can't see from that point of view. So I now want to look at, let's take the Canon group, because I know I've got lots of transactions and lots of data on there. And if I want to do, in the old days it was control zoom or control F8, I think it was, then basically it would give me all of the hidden fields and other fields that I require. So now it's control alt and F1 gets you to the same thing. So it's telling me that it's customer card 21, that's the page, and the table is the customer table, table 18. And here are all the fields on the customer table. So even if we can't physically see them on the card, some of the hidden fields, some of the system fields, they are all being shown here in exactly the same way as you would have done before. So if I want to look, so there's the name to field, obviously we can't see that, and the name to field is blank. We've got things like the telex number, you won't find that field on the system anywhere, but telex number is blank as well. And then things like the territory code, again, it's a field that's there, it's just not been dragged onto the card, but we can see that they've got an answer in there. The other thing while I'm here to highlight to you is that in the URL at the top, you can see here that we have the page number, so page 21 and the company ID DC demonstration. So here is page 21 on the card, and there's your page 21 at the top. So if I come off this field here, if I come off this list view, sorry, go off the card and go to a list view, you can see I'm on page 22. Here, look, customer list, page 22. So really useful if you don't know what the page number is, or you're searching, or you're trying to find it to do web services or something of that nature. You've now got the page number in the URL at the top. Okay, one of the other things that has been added into the system a few releases ago, so not necessarily on the latest release, but a few releases ago, was to copy the line description to the GL entries. As you can see there, it's for a line type of GL account, and rather than just putting across the invoice number, it will now take the line description with it. So if I create a new sales invoice, let's choose 2000. Okay. So Ligurian, and we come down and we want a line type of a GL account, and I'm going to use T3. Let's use consultancy services, and rather than just having the invoice number, so okay, and we had 2 days at 975 per day, and I'm going to post this invoice. So post, post, post. Let's open the posted sales invoice. So there's my posted sales invoice. If I go actions and find entries, When I now drill into my GL code, you see that obviously going to the control account is the invoice number, but going to the VAT and to my consultancy account is the line description Business Central training. So 8320, let's go and see that from the GL point of view. So if I go into 8320 and we drill down on the transaction, there's my invoice number, 1st of January 23, Business Central training. So makes life for reconciliation much clearer and much easier, and the detail coming through to the account is much clearer also. So the last thing I want to show you is deferrals. So deferrals again has been in the system for a reasonably long period of time. It might not be a feature that you're familiar with. These are the deferral templates, so we need to set these up in advance. So I've got several of them running here. So we've given it a code and a description. And then we have to say what the deferral percentage is. So in this case, we're going to defer the full 100%. I don't have to. And then the different deferral methods. So straight line is calculated equally according to the number of periods. Equal per period does exactly what it says on the tin, that it divides it equally into the number of periods. So if I'm deferring over 12 months or 9 months, in this case 12, then it will divide it equally between the number of periods. The days per period is subtly different because obviously there's different days in the month. So January has 31, February has 28 or 29, and then April has 30 and so on. So you will get, rather than an equal month amount, you'll get it based on the number of days in the period. And then the last one is the user defined. So the user defined allows us to define at the runtime how that deferral is to take place. The period description gives us some additional details. So %4 is the month name of the posting date. So 1 is the days, the week, the month number. So 1, 2 and 3 are the day number, the week number or the month number. And then 4 is the month name, 5 is the accounting period, and 6 is the financial year of the posting period date. So you can build up some description going with your transaction. Those are all in the help, obviously, and there is a number of periods. So in this case, we called it a 12-month sales deferral, and we're doing straight line, and we're doing the number of periods of 12. So the 3-month we've done equal per period, and the 6-month we've done as days per period. Yeah, so they will give slightly different results, and then the custom option we define as we run through. So if I go and create a new sales invoice, let's go 3,000. Okay, and if I do a GL line for 6, let's say sales, and we do one at 6,000, and I'm going to choose the 6-month deferral, which was 6 months is equal per days per period. Yeah, so this should be giving us slightly different values when I post this. 6 months giving us slightly different values when I post this. So when we post this invoice and we go and look at the invoice and we find entries underneath it, you can see I've now got 7 transactions. Obviously I would expect 3 for my goods, my VAT and my control. So there is my control account, so the 7,200. There is my accrual for 5380 for the 6,000 going in there, going to 6110. And there is my deferral for January. So it's taken 1,027 because there's 31 days in January. There is the 6,000 going in and out for the going to the sales account. And obviously there's my 5610, there's my VAT. So there is my 5380 and my 5380. So that is my deferrals account. So if I sit on this account, you can see. So this is my deferrals account. So the whole 6,000 has gone into my deferrals account, and then the 1,027 has come out, and 1,027 has gone into my sales. So let's go and do a custom one so you can see how that works. Okay, so if I go and do an invoice for the custom, let's go account number 2000, Seligorian, and let's choose a GL line. And let's go for retail sales again, and let's have a quantity of quantity of 1, value of 6,000, and here I'm going to choose the custom deferral code. Now if I try and post this, it's going to error that I haven't specified, so the deferral amount cannot be 0 on this particular line, custom template 0, so I can't post it without doing the deferrals, related information, deferral schedule, and it's telling me here that we're over 6 periods and I've got £6,000 to post, and down here I've got my running total. So basically I can say I want £1,500 in this one, I want £500 there, let's say another 1,500 there, and another 500 there, and let's say 1,500 there and 1,500 there. I mean, I've been fairly symmetrical, but ironically, but I've now defined what my deferral periods are broken down to. Now, obviously, those could be random numbers, and we've specified it over 6 months. So once I'm happy with that, I close that. And then obviously I can post this transaction. And if we open the posted invoice and we find entries again, so you will see on the GL again I've got the 7 entries that I would expect. So there's my control account, there is my VAT, and there is my 5380, which is my deferrals account, my prepayments, and then there is the £1,500 that we've moved into 6110 that has come out of the deferrals account. So it's doing the deferral and all the double entry for you. So this works on sales invoices, purchase invoices, but also works on general journals as well, so that you can put that deferral template field onto the general journal and allows you to post deferrals on maybe contractual revenue like maintenance contracts, etc. So really nice feature and well worth investigating. Let us know if we can help you with any of that.
Hi, my name is Robin Weston and I'm a business solutions developer at Dynamics Consultants. My job is to provide business solutions for Microsoft Dynamics Nav and Business Central. This can be smaller changes like tweaks to invoices all the way up to bigger projects where we're creating completely new bespoke functionality. I also help to upgrade older databases, so we make sure that any previous changes are compatible with the newer version. In my free time, I like to play guitar in my art rock band and spend time with my family.
So I think that's everything from us today. A big thank you to Chris from Vermont and Dave from Nextdoc, and obviously Stuart as well from DC. Any questions or introductions, just email one of us and we can let you have the contact details. I hope you like the Meet the Team snippets, or the 2 that you saw. We'll be adding more to each event, and I hope you find something of use for you all. And any suggestions that you would like for us, topics for us to cover in the future, would be really gratefully welcomed. Please don't forget to leave feedback in the next 24 hours so that you're in the draw for the champagne. And until we can meet again in person, we will see you again online for the next event, which will be in the new year now, so a quarter on from now. And I know it's a controversial thing to say as it's only October, but happy Christmas to everybody from all of you out there to everybody here at DC. So thank you all. See you soon.